everyone, it is Tanya. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today I am back with another speed build, and this is gonna be a fairly spacious family home that is inspired by the season of autumn. It's the middle of summer here in the northern hemisphere, and I'm honestly very over it, and I really wanted to build something more autumnal as I cannot wait for fall to arrive in real life. So I thought we would do that in The Sims, and as we recently got the Enchanted by Nature expansion pack, I thought it'd be fun to make like an Autumnal Faerie Cottage. So we are building in the world of Innisgreen, and I'm really happy with how this build came out. I really hope you enjoyed as well, and if you do and you'd like to download this build, it will be available on the Sims 4 gallery. You can find it under my EA ID, which is Gryphi, Gryphi. You can also find it under the hashtag Gryphi, and that info will be in the description down below as well. And a quick reminder that I do have a creator code with EA if you want to support me when you're buying content on the EA app. You just enter Gryphi at checkout, so thank you for considering, and thanks to EA for sponsoring this portion of the video. So right now I am messing around with the shape of this build. I have the general idea figured out at this point, but I actually end up swapping it. So the bump outs on the front are going to be on the opposite side, and you'll see me do that here momentarily. And the main reason I did that is because of the lighting on this lot. It's not great, but it's more on one side than the other, so I thought it would look nicer if I moved some of the front features of this house. I will be doing that. I'm also right now just trying to add some more livable space on the top floor so that I could have plenty of upstairs rooms in this house, as I didn't want it to be like a small cottage. I wanted to be able to fit a fairly spacious family in here. So just playing with the roof now to accommodate that upstairs and extending it ever so slightly before we start messing around with the front of the house and making it look better with the lighting. I used a bunch of different roof pieces to achieve the look here, so it's a little bit finicky when it comes to adjusting all of them to make sure they meet up where I want them to and don't clip into the house. And then I am starting to paint the roof, pick a different like color and texture on it. I started with this base game one, but I actually ended up going with one from the Enchanted by Nature expansion pack in the end. I originally wanted like this sort of orange, and then it turns brown. It changes swatches a bunch of different times because I had a vague idea in my head of what I wanted this house to look like, but it wasn't really coming to fruition on screen. So I ended up playing around with so many different colors and textures and windows, and we get there in the end, and I'm really glad that I stuck with it. But it wasn't one of those ones that came together super quickly. But this is where I am changing the bump out to the other side. So just drawing a wall in here so it's a room, so I could just quickly grab that and move it over, and then put the porch on this side instead. I think this worked so much better because there's just more light on the front of the house this way, or on like the entryway because of where the sun is coming from on this lot. And then I just extended this side over so we could extend our little dormer upstairs. And with that, I also moved the chimney over to this side of the house, as I think this room will work better as the living room where I will have the fireplace. I also considered having the dormer upstairs be the same type of roofing as the rest of the house. I didn't end up keeping that in the end. I will be swapping it back later on, but I did try it. And I also tried this roof trim from For Rent, I'm pretty sure, and I thought it was really pretty, but in the end, I ended up picking one from Enchanted by Nature that matches the roof texture I ended up picking, and you can see me messing around with that now, playing with the browns and the oranges, and I really wanted to use those little roof decorations that I had in the pitches of the roof earlier from Get Together, but they weren't the same pitch, and so it was really hard to fit them in, and in the end I did get rid of them. So to sort of achieve that same idea, I tried to use this brick texture that has the paneling between it from Get Together as well, and for a while I keep this, but it doesn't end up being the final color scheme of this house. I end up using actually a very like orangey wood and some wallpapers from Growing Together instead of Get Together. So I'm playing around with placing some of that down now. I go for a deep orange at first, and then I go for this lighter orange, and I end up liking that a lot better. And because of that, I do end up actually changing the color of the roof to be slightly more brown, which I still feel like feels very autumnal, but I was still feeling very indecisive about it. So I did try a few different wallpapers still at this point. I go back to brick, I go back to that dark red. I just wanted to see what everything would look like together. So figuring that all out now, I also tried some shutters on the windows that were more of a blue, and ultimately in the end I did end up mixing the siding with a brick, which I thought just looked so much more cozy. It's quite the process, but we'll get there. Right now I'm placing down some flower boxes on the windows and changing the wallpaper yet again. I also added a little roof piece under the center portion of the house, and I think that helps to break it up a little bit. I think it's really pretty. And here is that brick that I mentioned. I'm also extending the front porch out and figuring out what sort of fencing I'd like to use on that space, and getting our staircase up to that front porch as well. I decided to put it on the side. I thought it would look really pretty that way. And then I am changing the windows to this brown swatch, which I think is so pretty, and figuring out our front door. I ended up using two of this Space Game door next to each other, so it looks like a double door. And I think that worked out pretty nicely. I scaled one of them with tulle ever so slightly just to help with the clipping. I think it worked okay. And then I grabbed a couple of trees to start the process of landscaping at this point, and I don't think I finish it right now. I'm pretty sure I get started on it, and I finish the rest towards the end of the build, but I wanted to get a vague idea of what I was going to do here. So we're getting lots of low-lying plants and a couple of these yellow trees, and I also really wanted to have like a red tree on the lot. So I tried a few different ones. We should be grabbing them shortly. Oh, and I used these rocks here to kind of frame out the garden bed in the front. I thought this was so pretty. I also did end up getting rid of those big bushes that are very green. There's some in the background of this world, but they felt out of place with the other plants I was choosing. They felt too vibrant, so I did get rid of those, and I tried and pair it with some other plants. And I got some of this dead grass around as well, and a little bit of lavender, because the pop of purple always looks so pretty in these homes. Also, the way the grass looks naturally in this world of Innisgreen in the fall is so pretty. There's like fallen leaves all over it, and I really enjoy that. But that's how much landscaping we're going to do now before we head inside to work on the floor plan. This is where I ended up putting the staircase, which allowed me to have 3 bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs. And then downstairs, there's also a bathroom. I'm pretty sure it's only a half bath downstairs though. There's also a separate office downstairs, and then the living room has a section of it which is for the apothecary table. I tried to have lots of activities for these Sims to do, but I also really wanted to lean into the autumn colors and the idea that a family of fairies lived here. So it's not like over the top fairy or over the top autumn. I tried to like mix the two and make it neutral enough that you could have Sims living here not in the autumn or that aren't fairies, but the idea was fairies in the autumn. Let me know how you think I did on that. I thought it was a really fun concept, and I'm very proud of this build. But continuing to work on the floor plan here, I decided to add a half bath over between the kitchen and the dining room, and then I am also using some spandrels to separate these spaces just to make it a little bit more open, but also still closed off. I like the look of a closed floor plan for a cottage, but I didn't want just like a small archway there. So I thought the spandrels were a good way to approach that. And then I am adding a porch over here so that your Sims can leave into the side yard from the kitchen space, and just grabbing a roof piece so that it matches the rest of the house. I think having a side yard on houses like this, or like when you're on a lot that is wider than it is deep, I think works very nicely. So there ends up being a side yard here that has a few activities for your Sims to do, and I'll talk about that later when we get to the yard. But right now I'm picking out the flooring for the inside of the house and the wallpapers, and drawing out the fence for the yard, but I'm not going to really fully decorate it now. I'm just getting the fencing and placing down the red tree that I end up choosing, which I think is pretty. I wish we had more of the trees that came out red. I felt like every tree that I thought would look nice in this environment, when I placed it down, it turned yellow. So I was a little bit sad about that, but it's okay. I think yellow is also a beautiful color for the fall. I think of like oranges and reds more. But since this was a very early autumn build, we are very much not in the season yet until like about a month from now. It's like late September. So I'm sure there's plenty of time for some very red autumnal builds. Anyway, we're inside now and working on the kitchen. I did end up using these countertops from Enchanted by Nature. I do like the look of them. I just really wish there wasn't a seam on the top that clearly shows you that they are separate pieces. That bothers me a little bit, but I do think the style of them is really pretty and worked nicely for this build. I did use this wallpaper in here, this tiling, but I am going to be changing the swatch of it because this one didn't feel quite, I don't know, autumn enough, but this one did. It looks a little bit retro as well, the color scheme. I really liked how warm and cozy this space ended up going, and I loved the curtains from Enchanted by Nature as well in that yellow swatch. I also grabbed some sunflowers in here, a pail of apples over in the corner, and a couple of these pieces from the kitchen clutter kit to make it look like somebody is currently baking cookies. I just wanted it to look super cozy in this space, and I think I achieved that. I love this kitchen. I always love decorating kitchens, but something about it being like cozy and autumnal made me so happy. I mean, that is my favorite season, and I am so ready for it. I'm so over summer. I've never really liked summer, so living out the idea of it already being this time of year in my game was a blast. And making it a little bit magical with fairy items as well. Just so much fun. I can't wait to do some more autumn builds this upcoming season, but let me know if that's something you would like to see now, later. Is there specific stuff you would like to see? Some more summer-themed builds, more fairy things? I would love to know what you are hoping to see on the channel, as it's always fun to get suggestions from y'all and implement those. But anyway, over here I am using one of these shelving units from Enchanted by Nature to clutter up by the back door, and then we are moving on into the dining room, where I tried a few different tables. I'm pretty sure the one I end up using in the end is a base game one, and I paired it with these chairs from Seasons. I changed it a few different times, but we do get there. I am now trying the one from my wedding stories, which I really wanted to work, but it was the wrong wood swatch no matter how many times I tried it. So swapping back out for a base game one, I also considered the Seasons one, but the glass tabletop felt a little bit too modern for the space. And then I am going to be actually changing the color of the wallpaper to a like dark beige, which just felt so much warmer for the house, and all of the white walls in this house end up being changed to that instead. I also immediately knew I wanted to use the chandelier that came with Enchanted by Nature. That is like a stick with flowers on it. I think it is so pretty. So I placed that here, and I got some autumn leaves on top of the table as well from Seasons, and a couple of hutches over here. I feel like this room is probably the most screaming this season because of the leaves. And then I think there's only one set of pumpkins in the house, and they're in the primary bedroom. I was really more so just leaning into the color scheme of the season rather than the decorations, because I didn't want it to feel like you had to live in a house that was fully decorated for the season. I do that later in the year, and I always am excited to do like some Halloween builds and Christmas builds, but that's not really what this is. I just wanted to do like a fairy build that had autumn vibes to it. I also got to use the mushroom shelves over here. I think they are so cute. And then I placed a little closet by the front entrance, and then I'm just picking out the wallpapers for our bathroom. I do end up using the same wallpaper that the rest of the house has, but I used a tile on the floor that I think is so perfect. The color of it, it's kind of like a terracotta color. I thought it was nice. And I paired it with this sink from Horse Ranch of all packs. And then we have a cute little wreath up above the toilet, and then just getting like some soap and a plant and stuff. A couple of decorations to make the space feel a little bit more lived in. I also got some artwork up here, and then the same curtain in the space that I have throughout the rest of the house. Most of the rooms have those same curtains in them. I think there's a couple that don't, probably like the kids' room. I decorated the rooms upstairs as like a primary that matches the style of the rest of downstairs. A teen's room that has a pretty strong resemblance to the rest of the house, and then a kid's room that is really fun. I mean, they're all kind of autumn colors, but I wanted them all to have their own personality as well. So you'll see that when we get to it. But here in the entryway, I am just grabbing a burglar alarm and a fire alarm, a place to hang up your keys, a little mat for your shoes, and just a couple more decorations. There's so many wreaths in the game that I feel like work so nicely. And then I don't end up using this sofa, but this was the first one I was thinking of. And then I decided to section off the living room with some spandrels here. It made it a little bit more cozy. And then in the open area, I have the apothecary table. And then this is the sofa I actually ended up using, which is from Cottage Living. That one works so nicely with Enchanted by Nature. And then I placed down another fireplace in here. So there are two, one here and one in the dining room, and they are both from the Fairies pack as well. It just sounds so cozy to have the fire going when the weather outside is getting a little bit more crisp and cool. And you're just like cozied up inside, maybe watching some horror movies or something. That just sounds lovely. And just decorating the rest of the space. I got this beautiful artwork up above the fireplace from Cottage Living. There's also a record player up here, a little bit of artwork, a little plant. It's just a really cozy living room, and I loved how the rug fit in this space. It's one I haven't used a lot of from the latest pack. This one has a unicorn on it, but the colors were so beautiful, and it has that little bit of magic that I wanted to add to the space. Also, the basket of blankets over here from Cottage Living, it has one that has a pumpkin on it, and the colors were just so perfect for this space. And of course, to add some more cozy vibes, I did have to add some pillows to the sofa. I love doing that. I really hope we continue to get more throw pillows in the future. And then over here by the apothecary table, I did add some dried herbs and a couple of pieces of artwork up above it as well. And then just a couple more things that are like entryway items. So I got this little chair here. I believe I add a pillow to it. And I think there's going to be some shoes next to the chair as well. So like if you're putting on your shoes before you head out. And then this open space felt very open, so I did end up adding a big rug here, and then there is also a bookcase over in the corner, which I thought looked quite nice. And then do I add anything on the other corner? I feel like I do. Yeah, I added another plant here by the temperature controls, and then we're moving on into the office space. I ended up using the desk and the bookcases from Life and Death. I thought that they just looked really nice in here, so that's what I chose. I also ended up having the glow bar in here, which is just such a beautiful item. It looks so cool and perfect for an office, but it's also a functional bar, so your Sims can get some drinks if they would like. For the computer in here, ended up using the one from Cottage Living that looks like a typewriter, and then the desk is cluttered up with all sorts of stuff. We have some apothecary items, I have some flowers, there's going to be a bunch of books. There's just all sorts of stuff here. I wanted it to feel very lived in, and I was imagining the Sims that lived here are also very established and academic, so there are a bunch of diplomas and certificates and stuff above the desk as well. And I was really pleased with how cluttered this space ended up feeling, but it doesn't look messy. I felt like everything sort of had a spot. I also added a space for your Sims to have some family photos if they would like, and a cozy chair in the corner. And I almost didn't use any of this swirly furniture from Realm of Magic, from Enchanted by Nature, because I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I thought in a small section here, just having a little plant stand, that would look kind of nice to add some of those functional houseplants into the space. So I used that here, and then I also got a chess table so that you have another skill item. And then we're moving upstairs to our only other bathroom in the house, and it doesn't have a shower tub combo. It only has a standing shower, but I wasn't imagining there were like little kids or pets in this house, so I thought it was fine. And you could probably renovate this to make it a little bit bigger, make it like bump out the back of the house and make it a larger bathroom, but it was a little bit different for me not having a shower tub combo. I always do that in my builds because that's just realistic to me in real life. I've seen very few houses or very few bathrooms that don't have a shower tub combo, so that just tends to be what I go for. Anyway, quickly decorating the hallway up here before we head on into the primary bedroom to decorate that. And I changed the bed a few different times in here. At first, I had this one from Seasons. I go with a base game one. I tried this one from Modern Luxe. At one point, it's Eco Lifestyle, and then it goes back and forth a few different times. And in the end, I do end up keeping the Eco Lifestyle one. But first, I'm just getting an idea of what I want the beds in the other rooms to be. And now we are starting to pick out a rug. And I thought I was going to use the green swatch of this one from Werewolves. I'm pretty sure I don't even keep that rug. Or if I do, it's a completely different swatch. But you can see here I am swapping out the bed again and again. And this is the bed I end up keeping. I think it is so pretty. It's one of my favorite ones in the game. And for the art above it, I used some of the flower pressings you can get through gameplay in Enchanted by Nature. I really wish you could change the frames on them because they don't match. But since none of them matched, I just picked all of the ones that were wood colors, and I thought that that would work okay. Let me know if you think it does. I think it's kind of pretty. And then I really wanted a built-in wardrobe over here, but the colors of the ones from Dream Home Decorator just weren't right. So I sort of made my own custom thing with some cabinets on the bottom and some hanging shelves up above it from high school years. And I will be changing the shelves and, well, not the shelves, the cabinets a little bit later because I didn't really like the color and the style of the Jungle Adventure ones. So they're actually going to be the same as the cabinets downstairs from Enchanted by Nature, which really matched the theme a little bit better anyway. And then I am trying to change the color of the rug and not liking it, so I ended up going with this one from For Rent instead. And I was also able to fit a vanity in this room, which I thought was quite fun. So I just have a little bit of makeup and some candles up there. And that should be pretty much it for that bedroom. And we're heading on into our teens room where I thought I was going to use this bed from City Living, but I didn't end up keeping it in the end. I actually ended up with this one from Growing Together, which I think is so pretty. I love the swatches on it, like the deep reds and the blues. And I go back and forth between a couple of different swatches, and I'm pretty sure I go with one that's like beige and red in the end, which is a little bit of fun just because I don't use red in my interiors all that often. But I think it worked really nicely in here, especially for the autumn theme. So I am just pairing that with a rug from Werewolves and getting a couple of bedside tables and trying to figure out what artwork would work in here. And I started by placing down this piece of artwork, which I think is from For Rent. I didn't end up keeping that in the end because I really wanted this to be a teenager's room and fit the theme of the rest of the house, sort of. And that felt kind of random. I just ended up picking it because of the color. So we will be going back and changing that. But first, I decided that this sim would have a keyboard, which I thought was so fun. That is from City Living, and this brown swatch was perfect. I end up adding like a calendar up above it from the university pack. And then we're going to be adding some like posters and different fun things up above the bed to really get the idea of the interests of this sim. I also ended up getting a little shelf over here, which I placed one of the new gnomes from Enchanted by Nature on. I thought he was so cute, and he's pink and red, so it matched the bed beautifully. And then I'm just going to be cluttering up the bedside tables before we finish figuring out the artwork up above the bed. I just wanted to make sure we had plenty of clutter items in here. I did end up trying to use these pieces from Realm of Magic. I think they are so pretty, the frames, but I didn't think it worked so well in the end, so I ended up just using these ones instead from Werewolves. And I also was able to add the hanging plant with the cow plant in it. I just thought that that was really cute. And the heart-shaped display of Polaroid photos did make a final appearance and stay in this room. And that is it for that room, and we're heading on into the kids' room, where I was very excited to use this 4-poster bed from Seasons. I think it is so pretty. And I used a bunch of like kids artwork on the wall up here, some craftable things from Seasons. I don't think I've ever used that leaf piece up top. I've definitely used the other one with the like turkey made out of a paper plate, but the leaves, nope. I didn't even know we had that. I also ended up having this really pretty tree decal on the wall and like some other like kid-like things. We have a certificate for like losing your teeth. I think that is from Growing Together. And a couple of like plushies and stuff. Also, the acorn toy box is so cute. I feel like I've been using that a lot since we got Enchanted by Nature. It's just adorable. And I feel like it fits a lot of different builds. So I was happy to use that. And then this desk over here, or I thought about having a desk. I didn't keep a desk. I ended up placing down this dresser from Parenthood. It matched the other furniture pretty well. And then I am just cluttering up the top of this dresser here with a variety of items, some from the latest pack, some not. I just wanted it to feel very kid-friendly. I love the Freezer Bunny plushie with the fairy wings. And then I also added a big stuffed animal and a really cute dollhouse. It's actually made out of cardboard that you can pick whatever season you'd like it to be in. So I, of course, picked autumn. And then we are finally outside to finish our landscaping. Just getting a lot more of the same flowers and stuff that I have in the front. I also grabbed a swing set. This one's from Life and Death, and I just thought the wood tones were perfect. And it was important to add a place to do some gardening out here as well. So I have a few of those different garden plots and a bee box so your bees can help you with your gardening, and just a couple of decorations to tell that story that you are currently working on that space. And of course, I needed to add a fairy house, so there is one inside and one outside, and a place to roast some marshmallows or fish or whatever you'd like to do. There's a little campfire out here. But that is pretty much it for this build. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. You can also subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and click that bell to be notified when I upload. And a massive thank you to my YouTube members for your continued support. If you'd like to become a member yourself to see early access pictures and have your name featured at the end of every video, make sure you check out the link in the description or the join button below the video. Thank you so much for watching, enjoy the screenshots, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye everyone.